In this episode of the Tech John, we discuss Microsoft discontinuing Microsoft Publisher if the age of ultra-thin phones has come and gone, Patreon having social media envy, and Microsoft and Apple being woefully behind in AI. We've got all this and more for you in episode 202 of the Tech John. From Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. Anti-HVAC. Not looking forward to turning on the heat, but we have no choice now because the weather is getting cold down here in Georgia. So you got to turn on the heat, got to put on those long sleeves and get ready for this quote-unquote winter time.
It's funny. I was just talking about in the green room about my heater running and it being really cold out, so you can actually hear the pipes expanding when it first comes on. But yeah, it's that time of year, man. We also have like an inch and a half of snow outside. It's supposed to get 3 to 6 more tonight.
Well, snow tried to come down this afternoon, but it's just kind of flurries, but it's not enough to even. It's enough for Georgians to take notice, but that's about it.
Mm. Well, folks, you probably are noticing that Terrance and I are 2 and not 3 this week. Steph had an engagement that she had to attend to, so it's just going to be the 2 of us bringing this tech to you the way that we bring it to you. But before we get started, I do want to let folks know that we didn't have any new patrons this week. But if you would like to become a patron, and Patreon is the way that many of our supporters actually financially support the show, you can do so by heading over to thetechjohn.com/Patreon, where you will find multiple tiers, any one of which get you access to our live stream and our after party. A few of them actually get you access to, an ad-free stream if you're listening via your podcatching app. So once again, if you would like to support the show, head over to thetechjohn.com/Patreon. And Terrance, let's start things off by, I guess we got to pour one out for a couple of applications, because I believe Microsoft Publisher and Apple Clips are either in the state of going away or will be going away in the not too distant future. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Microsoft Publisher for those who used it. I never opened it, not one time. But for those people who are using it for, I don't know, PDFs, publishing magazine articles or books or whatever the case may be, Microsoft Publisher is one of the oldest Microsoft apps. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the attention, though, even though a lot of people like you, a lot of other people assumed that it was already discontinued. There were some people who I guess were using it. And since it was one of the oldest apps, maybe Microsoft held on to it for a little bit too long. But now they're finally pulling the plug. And that means there will be no more support for Microsoft Publisher. So if you've got documents and files and things like that in Microsoft Publisher, Microsoft highly advises that you move to an alternative or maybe even a competitor. Adobe being for one, InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, most of the Adobe products probably is what most people are already using if they wasn't already long gone from Microsoft Publisher.
Now, in our live stream, Saray is saying that Microsoft Publisher was trash. And I'm not going to refute that, because it wasn't necessarily great in comparison to some of the other apps. What it was free. At least you could get it for free when I was in university. I think it came out in 91. That was my freshman year of college. So it's been out for a minute. But it competed with those applications from way back in the day, like Adobe PageMaker and Coral Draw. I mean, there was a ton of things out there. But I remember when I got it, one of the things we used to have to do back before the internet was what it is today is that if you had books that you were trying to sell, you would use PageMaker or you would use like a publisher to create just a little flyer that had what books you had and your dorm room number, so people could get a hold of you, because this is even predating email. That if you had a book to sell, they would rip off a little tab at the bottom with your number on it, and they could, contact you to see if they wanted to buy the book that you wanted, because you could often get more money from people buying books directly than trying to sell them back to the bookstore. So I remember definitely like my freshman, sophomore years using, I'm saying PageMaker, but using Publisher. And it's just because it came on the computers at the school. I think I was able to get a free license for my own computer. So yeah, I have a little bit of fondness for it. But if you would ask me if that thing still existed, I would have told you they probably got away with that 10, 15, 20 years ago. I had no idea it was still up and going.
Yeah, yeah. Most people move to stuff like Canva.
Yeah.
Canva is like a one size fits all right
Mhm.
now. And between PowerPoint, which does a lot of the stuff like you mentioned, if you want to make a flyer for something, you can use PowerPoint, put together a flyer. If you wanted to use Canva or something like that, if you was already paying for something, but if you're using something free, most people probably use PowerPoint. That can do probably pretty much everything publisher can do. So probably for anything, it's just redundant that they even have publisher when you've got all this other stuff within Microsoft that can do it. And everybody's already on to Canva anyway. So it's like ain't no
Yeah.
sense of keeping this going.
And that was even one of the things that Microsoft said was their reason for discontinuing. It's not like the functionality is going away. It's just that it's redundant in other Microsoft products that are out that people use way more so than they use, MS Publisher. So kind of makes sense that they would get rid of it. But it is an old app. It's been around since '91. So there aren't many applications that are still running today that have been going for 30 some odd years. So
Mhm.
and here's the other one, Apple Clips. Now they already canceled. I think they went away on the 25th. Now it's not unsupported. Well, you tell me, is it unsupported? Because you can't download it anymore, but you can still use it if you have it.
Yeah, and I have it. And it's mostly used for you take the same type of features out of social media and put it into standalone app. So like memes, captions, adding little thought bubbles, doing like clips of videos. Typically with Instagram, you kind of press and hold and talk and then let go and then press and hold and talk. Like if you want to do like a stream of consciousness, that would be different like clips without recording the whole thing and then putting it into editing software to chop it up for social media. Clips kind of did the same thing. You could press and hold and record something, take your finger off, press and hold and record something square, vertical, specifically for social media without having to use social media. And then you take that whole video and you upload the whole thing into social media like Instagram, like TikTok, and it would do the same, it would have the same type of feel that you would do it inside of social media. But again, this is one of those things where everybody's so accustomed to social media and using the features within Instagram and then TikTok that Apple really couldn't keep up because they themselves do not have a social media platform. Now, if they had one, I'm pretty sure Clips would still be around. But since people are so used to using either CapCut or all the features inside of social media platforms like an Instagram, like a Threads, like a TikTok, people are used to using those. So really, people wasn't using Clips. So to answer your question, they end in support, meaning if you already have the app, you can use it. But if you don't have the app, then it'll no longer be available for download as of October 10th. So this thing been gone. So I just want to let folks know.
So was this something that you used at all?
Mhm. I would use it to create social media type videos for my friends and family on Facebook. So if I had like a weekend or even like a trip, like if our family went to somewhere for fall break, right? Instead of just doing like uploading a bunch of pictures to Facebook, I would make a movie out of a slideshow of pictures. And in the pictures, I would actually add captions like on the picture, add captions like, oh, this morning we went to the zoo. This afternoon we're chilling at the pool. And this evening we're going to a local restaurant. So instead of like it would fill social media without actually having to build it in social media. And that
Okay.
was helpful to me because unlike some of these fools, I would wait till I'm back from vacation to post videos from vacation, and I would use Apple Clips to use that because most people, for some strange reason, want to tell you when they're away, meaning they're away from their home, meaning somebody can rob them. But the reason why people do it is because you want to show somebody what you're doing and you want to use the social media tools to build it. So you spent all that time in the app building this post, building this reel, building this slideshow, and then you would just publish it. Well, with Apple Clips, I could do it like offsite. for lack of a better term,
Hmm.
and then upload the whole thing to social media so I wouldn't have to like keep going back into social media every time I wanted to add a new piece of the video or the slideshow or whatever the case may be. So I'm trying to make a case for it, but it's already gone. So ain't no sense of y'all even thinking about it now.
Yeah, and I imagine, like you said, most people is like instead of doing it in clips, you could just go do it in Instagram or do it in TikTok or just do it wherever you're creating the content.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
wherever you're going to put the content. If and clearly this was not Apple's business model. They did not need to make money off of clips, but it seems to me like where clips would still be useful is that if you were, let's say you're creating a piece of vertical content and then you say publish to TikTok or publish to Instagram or publish to wherever, and it actually creates the content that would best work on those platforms. So like, for example, if you were doing something on TikTok, the place where the like all the icons for TikTok are, all the buttons for the actual interface of TikTok are in different places than they are on LinkedIn. They're in different places than they are on Facebook or Instagram. So if clips could have, moved stuff around to just make it advantageous to whatever platform you're saying publish to, it would look best on that as though the content was created natively there. It probably would have been a thing. But
Yeah, but I don't know if any app is allowing you to do that because these apps make everything different on
right,
purpose to keep you in the app, right?
right.
Clips was an attempt at let me give you vertical video because everybody's watching video. Let me get the ability for you to chop up videos, not a video editing tool, but you can add slideshow videos together. You can add pictures, you can add video, you can add captions to it. It's vertical and then you can export it to your camera roll. Outside of that, then you got to upload it to TikTok
Hmm.
and then do the algorithmy things for TikTok. Upload it to Instagram, add the the algorithmy things that fit, so on and so forth.
Right.
But with clips, it was like shoot the video, chop up the video, add some captions, and then put it wherever you need to put it and
Okay.
tweak it to wherever you was putting it to.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're gonna pour some out for clips. We probably should have did that a few weeks ago because it's already gone.
I just
Um,
noticed it and it's like, dang, I use that. And I'm gonna keep using it because it's handy when I want to make something
yeah.
real quick and I don't want to have to be using a social media app. I want to do it on my phone and then
Hmm.
put it where I want it to go.
Right. And then I would imagine that there's probably still some people who are using Microsoft Publisher, have no idea who they are, but I'm certain that somebody's doing it. So
Hmm.
y'all got a year. You got a year to figure something else out.
Hmm.
So Terrence, this next one, I'm just gonna ask the question. Um, is it time to move on from the ultra thin phones? I asked that question because Apple has now canceled the launch of the second generation iPhone Air planned for next fall, and has already drastically cut production of the first generation. Now they have stopped short of saying that the phone is canceled altogether. They've just canceled production of the phone. And if you go back a few weeks ago, Samsung has flat out canceled. They're done with with their thin phone. So they had the S25 Edge that they've already ceased production on that. It did not sell very well at all, and then they canceled the S26, and there is no indication that they are going to come out with these ultra thin phones any longer. So I wanted to kind of get your take on it because this is my take. The phones are fine. They're nice, but they're expensive compared to devices that do more and are just a little bit thicker. And my take is that yeah, they're really thin, but they're so thin that can you even tell how thin this phone is? If you put it in your pocket, does it feel different than just a regular iPhone? Does it feel different than just a regular Galaxy S25? I don't know that you can tell the difference in most people's pockets. Maybe some people's pockets are so tight that you could tell the little bit of thinness, but it just seems like these devices were more expensive than their contemporaries, and they had less functionality. They either had less camera, capability, or they had less battery output. So what is your thought? Are we, have we seen the first and the last of these ultra thin phones?
No, because one, I don't trust this story. I don't trust this story from The Verge. They themselves are pointing to some other website, the information that I
Hmm.
never heard of. So jury's still out on whether or not Apple is going to announce the iPhone Air 2 next year, or whatever you call it, most rumors point at the reason why Apple's making a thin phone so they can smash two together and make a foldable phone. Now, if that's the reason why Apple is canceling the single pane thin phone because they're going to put two together, that makes perfect sense. But I don't see Apple, Samsung, Google, whomever, nah, HTC's nothing, all these other major Huawei, all these major phone manufacturers. I don't see them getting away from trying to go as thin as possible, because in the future, according to sci-fi movies, the phones we have are clear planes of glass, maybe no bigger than like a stick of gum, not a stick of gum, but like
So
a little container of
mhm.
gum, and it's clear. It's like transparent, but it's got the screen, it's got the stuff on it. I think companies are going to that. The reason why they're not doing them singularly or slowing down is because they're trying to make foldable phones now. So,
So here's my take on this. I wonder how much thinner it you can go on a phone. Clearly, there is an edge and there's an air, so they can get them pretty thin. But you're getting to the point of do you still continue to try to make them any thinner than that? Because now you're going to probably start losing structural integrity on the devices. You don't want them to bend up when you're putting them in your pocket. And then two, if they're too small, you physically can't use them like a phone. Like, people's hands really haven't changed. My hands are bigger than most folks' hands, but hands have been hands for hundreds of thousands of years. This is not like it's not like people's hands are changing. So if you continue to make the devices smaller, you would have to make just a completely different form factor. Now that may be where we're going to, where maybe your phone now is
or,
just an earpiece that you wear, and you no longer have
well,
a physical piece of glass in metal that you put in your pocket.
Well, most things like my AirPods, I can use voice control to
Mm-hmm.
answer calls, send text messages, schedule things, send emails, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my watch, I can use my watch and measure the calculate or read or respond to. So it's like, yes, if we're using our phone all the time and we're not going to something else like AR glasses, for example, that's
Mm-hmm.
another interface that's where I can read directions, read text messages, whatever the case may be, without actually using my phone. And the phone, which is my future, to where everything is my phone. And all I'm doing is docking the phone into a laptop, or docking the phone at my crib, and that turned into the info, or docking it into my car, or connecting it, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So I still feel like the phone is like the home base for a lot of things, but we'll be using other things like our voice, like our gestures, like our eyes, to do a lot of the functions, to where we may not even have to take the phone out of the pocket half of the time, with the exception of watching videos or social media.
Mhm. Now, in the case of Samsung, they flat out told us why they have discontinued the Edge. It's all
Mhm.
about sales. So, just some of the sales number here. It looks like when you look at the Samsung's S25 series, achieved significantly better results. It sold 8.28 million devices for the S25, 5.05 million for the S25 Plus, 12.18 million for the S25 Ultra, but only 1.31 million for the S25 Edge. And when you look at the Edge, it costs more than the S25, but is less capable. It has less in it. The iPhone Air, same kind of thing. Now, no, I'm not reporting at all that it's canceled. We're just saying that the information says that they're not going to come out with one, in 2026. Maybe that means they're going to push until 2027 or something like that. We have not heard that yet. But the
Mhm.
same thing is that the Air, a lot of people like the Air, but it's like, but yeah, I'm not going to trade the Air for the iPhone Pro. If I want to get a Pro, I still want all the Pro stuff in it. The Air doesn't have it. And do I want to pay that much more for an Air to have less camera and battery than I get in the regular iPhone? And so far, it
Well,
looks like the answer is no, that people aren't really buying it, which is one of the reasons why they are slowing down on production this year and are potentially not going to have it for next year.
um, my guess is yes. Comparatively speaking, the iPhone regular in some cases is better than the iPhone Air. I guess Apple put this out. I guess Samsung and Google put this out for people who are actually willing to sacrifice functionality for form. I don't know. Again, we'd have to be in Apple's sales rooms or Google sales rooms to find out what numbers they were actually targeting, or was this like a test, right? Was this the future with the iPhone Air, or was it just a test? And maybe it failed the test because it didn't sell up to a certain number.
Hmm.
But maybe there are some people who are willing to sacrifice form for function,
Now,
and maybe it wasn't just enough.
now you had the opportunity to play around with an Air, right? And you thought it was okay, if
Well,
my
just in the
memory serves me.
store. Yeah, I don't I didn't have it in my person or purchase it or anything like that. When I went to pick up my AirPods, the newest version, played around with both the Air and the Pro Max of this year.
Hmm.
And personally, I couldn't it wasn't my phone was just fine.
Hmm.
The iPhone Air would be advantageous, but yes, I'm in that camp of, well, I really want to give up camera functionality? And I couldn't get over that, right? But I was paying less, right? Because
Hmm.
I really like the form factor of the iPhone 17. But like you said, well, like we both said, I wasn't one of the people that was willing to sacrifice functionality for form factor. And maybe a lot of people weren't, but that don't necessarily mean it failed. It just mean like people chose to stick with functionality, and maybe Apple will
Hmm.
and Samsung or whomever will take that into consideration going forward.
Yeah, Samsung, they are done. They've actually, Samsung's reported the phone is canceled. They're no longer making the Edge, and there's even a rumor that they may be coming out with some other form factors. I know that Apple is going to do something different starting next year, to where all the iPhones won't be released at the same time. So you'll have if you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that in 26 there will be an iPhone Pro and the foldable iPhone that has been rumored. And then
Well, that's the
early
rumor.
27 we'll actually get like the other lower end iPhones. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, again, that is the rumor, right?
Hmm.
That Apple is going to stagger them to where the 18 Pro and the Pro Max will come at one time. But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. They probably want if they're going to launch a foldable phone, they would want to announce it separate because it is a new form factor, even though it is a smartphone. It will have a new form factor, and I'm pretty sure Apple doesn't want that. Wants that either they want it to take front stage, or they don't want to be jumbled up in all the other stuff and make people choose, right? Because if they all launch at the same time, I'm actually having to choose right then and there. Versus maybe some people will wait to get the foldable because it's not coming out the same time as the 18 or whatever they call it.
So the foldable iPhone, I know this,
Mhm.
we didn't put this in those, but the foldable iPhone, um, do you see that in your future?
Not this first go around. Like, I think we talked about that before. I think I'm done with early adopter stuff in general.
Uh-huh.
So, with a new foldable phone would be intriguing because it's the first foldable phone that Apple has made. But if you look back in history, I mean, this is back in history of everything, right? Cars, whatever the case may be. If I look back and look at the first version of the Apple Watch that I bought versus like version 3,
Hmm.
just like two versions after, so much
Yeah.
better that it would have made more sense for me to wait. Same thing with the iPhone. When I first got the iPhone 4, 4 or 14, I can't remember. Anyway, iPhone 4. It was the iPhone 15 after that was so much better.
Yeah.
Right? So taking history, my personal history, and and including that into my decision for buying the first foldable iPhone from Apple, knowing history, I'm gonna have to wait, man. I'm gonna have to wait till version 2 come out because I got a feeling that people are going to jump the gun for the first foldable iPhone, and then the first generation, even with all, like you said it before, Samsung, Apple may tap Samsung for the hinge or whatever the case may be, and then Apple will put their own 2 cents on it that makes it Apple, right? But
Hmm.
even still, I kind of feel like that first phone, people are going to have issues with it, and then Apple's going to refine, and then the iPhone Foldable 2 will be all new improved, and that's when I'll jump because I'm not in the early adopter camp no more. I don't think, as far as phones are concerned.
I definitely am not. It is pretty rare that I will get a device when it is version one, unless it's a brand new device that I've been waiting for. Um, like I got the Elgato prompter when it first came out because it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that solves a problem that I have. Let me go ahead and pick that thing up. And I've had it for years now. So I can't say, oh wow, now that there's like the Elgato Prompter XL, well, I should have waited because I would have been waiting, 2-3 years to get the thing that I actually want, and that's a little bit too long to wait. But phones, like I initially thought that I was going to want the very very first Samsung Fold when it came out. I was like, no, I'm just going to wait. And then when the two came out, I went and looked at it. It's like, even with the two, it's a nice phone, but it's thick and it's thin. It's thick and thin. So like the actual thickness of the phone when it's folded together was noticeable, and the actual the width of the screen when you're using it in candy bar mode, which is where most metrics say most people use it in candy bar mode than they do when it's actually opened up. It was just too thin because I do really like a big phone. I use Samsung generally builds some of the biggest phones that are out as far as that S25 Ultra is concerned. And I didn't want to give up any of that screen real estate in the way that I would use it the most. So this year is the first year where that when it's folded in half, the screen is close to the size of an S25 Ultra. And I said, okay, I'm not going to get that. I'll wait until next year to make sure that nobody has a lot of complaints about it, and maybe I will get the second edition of it when it's really wide like that next year. So I can see that in my in my future next year, but I wasn't ready for it this year. I will also ask you this, and then we can move on. The rumors are that this iPhone is going to fold horizontally, or I'm sorry, vertically. Do you see Apple coming out with a phone that will
Like a
fold
like a
like a
clamshell.
clamshell? Because that seems like even that those those form factors on the Android side are the ones that are just they can't stay on the shelves, whether it be the Samsung
The
Flip,
clamshell
the
one.
clamshell, the Samsung Flip sells like crazy. The Motorola makes some really nice ones. I was looking at one a couple days ago that actually has like an actual wood grain on it. These flip phones are really 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 nice, and they're doing well, which is one of the reasons why everybody is now making them. But Apple is way behind on that. Do you see them coming out with a clamshell style flip? And maybe that would be something that would appease people who said that they really like the Air, because now they're going to get a much smaller form factor that they can fold in half and stick in their pocket as compared to being super thin.
I don't know, man. It's still, I guess it's still the form over function thing. What I mean by that is I see more functionality with Apple making a phone that flips like a book,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, if I'm looking at, if I'm reading a book, right? Or I am reading a magazine, or I'm trying to think of some of the things that people do on an iPad that really all I need is just a little bit more screen real estate and then have the best of both worlds. So I'm thinking people who bring iPads to read, people who bring iPads for watching videos,
Mm-hmm.
streaming Hulu, YouTube, Apple TV Plus, whatever the case may be. I see people with more of a usage for that functionality versus form factor being so small, I can shove it in my back pocket. We'll see if more people like the idea of being able to take I know my wife, for example, when she goes out, she wants to use a small clutch and her phone doesn't fit into a clutch. She'd be a perfect candidate for it to fold up like a
Mm-hmm.
clamshell and jam it in there, right? Is there enough people that want, form factor over the functionality that comes in opening an iPhone like a book and getting all that extra screen real estate?
It's funny that you say that. That is the exact reason of why my wife loves her so much. And she says, uh, we are Samsung generally, but she said if Samsung never stops making this, but Motorola's still making theirs, I'll switch over to that. I like that form factor so much that she'd switch.
Mhm.
She cares about the form factor more than she cares about the manufacturer of the phone at this point. She's like, as long as it's running Android and it flips in half, that's what I'm in on. And I'm seeing so many people who are getting these now. Now, clearly, these are mostly all Android users who have been on Android for a while. I can't say that I've seen any iPhone users. I'm sure there are some, but I can't say that I've seen any or know any that were using an iPhone and said, I really like that flip style, form
Well,
factor so much. I want to switch and move to a different platform.
if Apple decides to do it, of course they'll create the story as to why you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll create some fantabulous story to where all these iPhone users all of a sudden be like, dang, I nothing existed until Apple decided to tell me that I needed this thing. So you don't have to worry about people not finding a use for it because Apple, if one thing they do is they do a damn good job at marketing. So they will market the hell out of a reason for us to now need a clamshell iPhone. So you ain't got to worry about that.
Yeah, I actually wonder because Apple is so good at this. Is when they do come out with the fold, if it'll be so good that
Mhm.
in a year or 2 or 3, people will forget that they didn't always have it, that it was literally years before they
Well,
came out with it.
my thing is, it'll Apple will come up with a reason as to why iPhone holders need a flip phone. Because again, before this, Samsung and Motorola have been doing it for what, almost 5 years,
6,
7
7 years,
years
yeah, yeah, it's been a
by
minute.
the time Apple does it. But Apple's reasoning for why you need a flip or a foldable is going to be so much better than Samsung and Google's reason as to why people have been using them for 5, 7 years. So you got to wait for Apple to do their magic to tell people, oh, this is why now is the time to get a foldable, not 7 years ago and play around with Android or Google or
Mhm.
Samsung.
Yeah, then I will say the last thing, and then we can move on. The other reason why I haven't gotten the Fold yet, the Samsung Galaxy Fold, that joker is expensive. The way I would want it, that thing is pushing 2 grand for a phone. That's a
Mm,
laptop. I mean,
mm,
um, generally the laptops I get, my work laptops, are a little bit more expensive than that. Just because when I do get a laptop, I'm getting the highest end that I can get, and I'm jacking up all the memory and the hard disk and all that kind of stuff just so it'll last me, 5, 6, 7 years. Um, I'm not like that on my phone. So do I want to spend $1,800 on a phone? I have not been able to convince myself of that. So
if it
we
could
will have to see.
replace If it could replace a tablet for me, I'd do it, but it has to replace my tablet. I can't also need my tablet.
Right.
And it'd be phone and MacBook. That's it. If the foldable phone can't replace my iPad, then I'll just stick with the brick.
I'm with you on that because I do use a tablet. In fact, we're going to talk about my tablet use in the after party. So folks who are wondering, after we get done doing a regular show, our patrons get access to our after party. I'm going to talk about specifically some ways I want to use that, coming up. So I'll just tease that. But I'm the same way. I'm someone who uses a tablet a lot. I probably use my tablet almost as much. When I'm working, I'm on a PC all the time, but my PC is literally sitting in a docking station. It's almost like it is a desktop. When it comes to taking my laptop around or taking my tablet around, it is 9 to 1. I will have my out of 10 times I will have my tablet out and about with me and not my laptop because I only need to take my laptop if I'm going to do like some hardcore editing on it, whether it be audio editing or trying to do some video editing. Outside of that, my tablets take care of everything. So I use them everywhere. And I'm like you, if I can't replace that tablet, because the tablets I get are not inexpensive either. If I can't replace the tablet with a foldable phone, then does it make sense to get the foldable phone? So we'll cross that bridge sometime in next year. So Terrance, you stuck this story in our rundown about Patreon and their social evolution with some new things they're doing. So tell us what's going on with Patreon.
Yeah, it looks like CEO Jack Conti is trying to offer Patreon creators, so people who create content and quote unquote charge people to get access to it, right? The CEO is like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Creators who are creating content, you should have more options to communicate or share or even talk to your Patreon subscribers in addition to publishing the content that they're paying for. So instead of, in addition to, let's just say, Patreon subscribers to the Tech John, right? We say, be a Patreon subscriber. You'll get access to exclusive, whatever the case may be. The only time we publish to Patreon is to give the people what they paid for, right?
Hmm.
Well, what Patreon is trying to do now is they want to give creators the ability to create social media posts that they can share with just their Patreon community, but they be free and people can choose whether they can choose to see that content, whether they are a Patreon subscriber or not. So that's where the it feels like social media, another social media platform comes from, because I'm not, if like we're talking about the Tech John and me and Rob post a picture of us and say, no Stephanie this week. Be sure you tune in to find out all the things Terrance and Rob are going to get into, right? I could do that screenshot and put that in Patreon, and it not just be for my subscribers, it be for anybody that has a Patreon account. Now, if I say click in the inside to get whatever inside exclusive, whatever, they click those links, it'll take them to our Patreon page, and then they
Hmm.
decide whether or not they want to subscribe or not. But if they don't want to subscribe and they just want to see like the silly faces or whatever behind the scenes content we post to Patreon to entice people, they'll get to see that. So the question is, ultimate question is, how is this going to be different than a social media platform, and why would creators choose this over just posting on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, X, whatever the case may be, Blue Sky, whatever.
So when I read this article, when I read some of the comments, or actually, yeah, some of the comments from Jack Conte, he specifically referenced Instagram, and
Hmm.
you shouldn't have to be on Instagram to get Instagram, some of those Instagram like features, if we can offer them here and keep,
Hmm.
and keep folks who for whatever reason weren't on Instagram over here in this platform. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's kind of what he said. What was very interesting to me is he did not mention the words Substack, because I
Hmm.
think that where these features are coming from are
Hmm.
a reaction to what Substack is doing, and the fact
Hmm.
that there has been a bit of an exodus of people from Patreon over to Substack for these very reasons. That Substack allows you to publish, allows you to, to basically gate, paywall your content. But you
Hmm.
can have, through, I think they're called Substack notes, you can have conversations with anyone that you
Hmm.
want to have conversations with, regardless of whether they are subscribed and paying for your publication or getting the free
Hmm.
version of your publication. Those things are kind of there. Patreon has been, in my opinion, as someone who uses Patreon a lot, we talk about Patreon every week on this show. I think that Patreon as a platform has kind of fallen behind with some of these other platforms, namely Substack. Ghost is another one. And then some of these membership platforms that people are using, like School, like Circle, and many, many others. I think they've kind of fallen behind on that, to where it was just, hey, if you would like to support support someone, become a patron, and here's how you can do it. And they have not added additional features of being able to talk to your audience, newsletters, all those kind of things. I mean, they're kind of showing up there now. But in my opinion, although Jack Conte didn't say anything about Substack, this sounds like, hey, we understand that Substack is doing some stuff that people like. We now need to do
True.
those things as well, so that you can do that stuff here and not leave us for them.
Yeah, but not so much Substacky, if that makes sense. Most people go to Substack for long form. They go to Substack for long form content, right?
Mm-hmm.
People go to social media, Instagram, Threads, TikTok for short form content. So I think Patreon is like, all right, we don't want to feel like Substack, to where we want our creators to create content just for people on Patreon who are not necessarily subscribers to our podcast, but we still want to create content for them, right? I think Patreon with this Quips, that's the new feature. It's called Quips. They want to keep it short, sweet, and concise so creators can broadcast content and it not feel anything other than, yo, this is Terrance Gaines from Tech John. Just want to let y'all know Stephanie's not in the building this week, but guess what? Me and Rob are going to be talking about this, that, and that short and sweet of a post versus Substack. I would feel like if I was a creator on Substack, I feel like I would want to make something more with more teeth, like something like informational that they would want to read versus Patreon's kind of like, hey, check out this new post, or hey, I'm about to post my get ready with me, whatever, or hey, it's like a almost like a broadcast versus Substack is like, we want information. And if you go behind the paywall, you get even more information,
So,
if that makes sense.
so someone who's been using Substack for a little while now, I'm over there, I'm creating over there. I actually find the notes, the Substack notes, I find them refreshing, because one of the things that is problematic for me on platforms like Instagram, like Threads, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, is that there's an algorithm that controls who is going to see what. I can have people who are following me on Instagram, and if I post a post, they don't necessarily see my post. The algorithm will determine whether or not they see my post, unless they go through the work to add me to a list or something like that. And then everything that gets posted to whatever's added to this list, they then are able to see. With Substack, although there are some algorithmic things that Substack is starting to do, if I follow someone, I'm going to see the content that they post. And there are a lot of folks who are posting on Substack, and they're not charging. They don't have anything behind a paywall. They're just creating content there as a distribution channel, and whether it be their newsletter, and usually is a newsletter. I think that's still what most people are using Substack for, is to have some type of newsletter. Some folks I do know are using it for podcasts, me included in that. But it's one of those things to where you can charge for content if you choose to do so, but it's not necessarily all that you can do. There are a lot of people who have never charged or put their content behind a paywall. They're simply just using it as a distribution channel. So then when you start having those conversations, you may write a 350 word to 500 word, 1,000 word essay that you put in your newsletter, but you just may want to say something on, you put your newsletter out every week, but you just want to still have conversations every day with your audience. You can do that without having to go and create that podcast, without having to create that newsletter, without having to create that video, or whatever the case is. And I think that what Substack is kind of doing here is saying, okay, we want to do something similar. And it's not just the quips that have just come out recently. They've been doing this before. It's like, they've, for a while now, you've actually been able to have like free accounts over on Patreon. You're able to do live streams on Patreon. There's a lot of things that you can do, but it's still focused on primarily people who are behind the firewall, or who are behind the paywall, I should say. And these new features that Patreon is putting out, just seems like I said, they mentioned Instagram. And the Instagram analogy is probably a decent one, but a better one, in my opinion, would have been Substack, because it just feels like, this is kind of stuff that they're doing over on Substack, and this is what people are raving about on Substack. The Substack notes, people love that stuff because it's not algorithmically controlled. It's like, if I follow this person and they post something, I see it, and that's what a lot of
Right,
people want.
right. But I think I still feel like the features that they've put into Quips feel like early Instagram. It's just
Hmm.
updates.
Hmm.
It's just like, hey, look at this. Or hey, this is what we're talking about on next week's show. It's not really now what Instagram is, a marketing platform,
Hmm.
right? For people, creators trying to market their content, or market you hooking into their algorithm, right? These Patreon stuff still feels like really simple, really easy, like updates, broadcasts. It's not even meant to spark any sort of conversation. It's kind of like, what can we offer creators to be able to give them more opportunities to touch their users who are paying for the service, and those people like you mentioned who just have free accounts on Patreon? How do we, as simple as possible, make like an update, And I think they keep saying Instagram because they don't want people to feel like this is turning into some big thing. That's like, keep it social media, but it not be social media.
Yeah.
they're,
So
they're trying to thread the line between a social media platform and a social media platform because they want it, but they don't want it.
yeah. I have several Patreon subscriptions, but if I think about it, every single last one of my subscriptions is a podcast. Do you have number one, do you actually subscribe to anybody on Patreon? And then two, are they all podcasts, or do you actually have people who are like creating long form written content that you are getting through a Patreon experience?
I wouldn't know if long form content that wasn't a podcast was on Patreon. I didn't know people were using Patreon for anything other than I have this podcast. Let me figure out how I can milk some people, my member people who listen, who are avid listeners. How do I make them paid subscribers? I didn't, to be honest, I didn't know Patreon was doing anything other than that. So you're schooling me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's new to me. I don't know anybody who's using it that way. I would imagine that there are though. I definitely would imagine that there are. So Terrance, this next thing is like, it seems like it is an ongoing story, particularly with Apple, but a little bit here with Microsoft. And I titled this "Microsoft and Apple are woefully behind when it comes to AI, but for different reasons." So if we talk about Microsoft, Microsoft is partnering with influencers to promote its Copilot chatbot to a younger audience, aiming to compete with ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. And the reason they're doing this is because although it does okay, Copilot does okay with business users, man, ain't hardly anybody using this outside of business users, especially those who are in the under 30, which is a market that Microsoft so sorely wants to capture, because they know if they can get them when they're young, they will be able to keep them, in essence, for a lifetime, unless Microsoft messes up. So from a Microsoft standpoint, they do have their own AI. Copilot is it is an AI system that it does quite well at what it does. It's just that no one uses it. I'm looking at some of the numbers here. Microsoft only has 150 million monthly active users compared to OpenAI's 800 million weekly users and Google's 650 million monthly users. So if you were to say, well, Microsoft and Google are probably more of a fair comparison, even Google is, five times what what Microsoft is here. Then if we drop down and we talk about Apple, Apple's in a whole different situation. Apple is so far behind with their artificial intelligence that they have decided that they're going to use Gemini for the tune of about $1 billion a year, to use Gemini as the workhorse behind Siri, at least for next year. And this number kind of really stuck out to me. Apple Intelligence utilizes 150 billion parameters compared to Gemini's 1.2 trillion parameters. So it's woefully behind. And when you think about Apple Intelligence just on the phone, I want to say it's something like 3 billion parameters. Now, there is no Gemini that runs on your phone, so there's not a comparison, to make there. But it's just Apple is just way behind. So Microsoft's behind, Apple's way behind. And my question to you, Terrance, is: do you think that these two big companies, Microsoft, the big software company, Apple, the big hardware company, are they so far behind at this point that do you perceive them ever being able to catch up, or will Microsoft always kind of have Copilot that's their own thing, but you can also use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever else, because Microsoft's a pretty open platform? And then with Apple is telling you right now, hey, we're going to use Google next year at least, because because to power Siri, because our own Apple Intelligence is not there yet.
So are you asking me, is it a bad thing that they're behind, or are you asking me
Do you think
what
that
can they do to
do you think that they can catch up?
the question is, do you think they want to catch up? If
Um,
they've already conceded, for lack of a better term, and Microsoft is good with Copilot being enterprise or business users, and Apple has conceded and says, we'll just let anybody use whatever AI chatbot they want to use. Do you think they're still trying to catch up, or
um,
are you sounds like you think they should just for the love of the game, or have they? I feel like they've already said, all right. Let somebody else do it.
I think Microsoft is in a very different position than Apple. Copilot is absolutely usable. I don't use Copilot. I'm more of a Google person. That is the ecosystem that I'm in. Even though I use Windows PCs, I don't have any Microsoft services that I pay for outside of I buy Windows whenever I buy a PC. So from a Microsoft standpoint, they also still have 28% of OpenAI. So although OpenAI is not Microsoft and Microsoft's not OpenAI, and each of these companies has deals with other companies, Microsoft's getting over, getting over 25% of the money that's coming in, to OpenAI. So there's that part. Apple, on the other hand, I am somewhat concerned with Apple from the stance that
Apple as a company.
not Apple as a company, Apple when it pertains to artificial intelligence.
Okay.
I right now believe that Apple is so far behind that I don't know that they can catch up. Now, I'm saying that full transparency, I am not really in Apple's ecosystem. So I know that there are some folks that will say, as soon as Apple has it, I'm just going to use it because I'm an Apple person. I get that. That isn't me. So, but I think that they are so far behind. I don't know that they can catch up because if they use Google for next year, it's not like Google's going to stop developing and like Gemini is not going to be better 2 years from now than what it is now. If Apple is not in a position to challenge what Google can do, what OpenAI can do, what Perplexity can do, all these other companies can do, to the point that they decide that we're going to use someone else's artificial intelligence to power our stuff, because what they're going to do is actually run Gemini on Apple's own server, so it will be closed. All the security that you are concerned about, if when Apple you're using Apple devices, that is still going to be there. So it will be potentially even a safer version of Gemini than what Android users get, because they're running it on Apple's hardware, and we know how Apple is about security. But my concern for Apple is that, but if you're doing that now, it's not like Gemini is not going to be a year better a year from now. Can Apple
Well, let me ask you.
can they actually get good enough to where they can say, we're going to now take Gemini off and we're going to use our own stuff? And will their
What
customers say, well, that's cool for you to do that, but I'm going to still go use Gemini because I can still use it. I can still download that app independently and use it on your platform.
what if they never say that?
Well, that's my question. I don't know that they will at this point. I think the intention is they're still working towards it. I don't know
they
that
are. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're fine with letting Gemini and Copilot and OpenAI. Maybe Apple's done with the AI business. I guess my question is, what happens if Apple says, we'll let somebody else do AI? We're happy with our little on-device Apple intelligence that helps you word things better and maybe knows you a little bit more to be able to customize your alerts and reminders and notifications and calendar events and meeting invites. And for everything else, like the popular stuff that everybody's used to, I don't think Apple was ever into that, to be honest. I think Apple Intelligence run on the device was specifically for end users' data. The AI that everybody's using is all of the internet's and the world's data. And I don't think Apple, to be honest, I don't think Apple had any intention of doing that as it stands now in the first place. So the fact that they tried a little bit and it didn't work, I think Apple's now has said, all right, we tried it. We can't do it. We'll let Google on it and we'll just move into foldable phones, or we'll move into AR glasses and we'll stick with our Vision VR glasses. We'll keep working on that until there's no need and we'll keep on. I think, to answer your question, is I don't think Apple was ever trying to compete as it stands in the first place. So for them to concede, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now, I'd be talking differently if it blew up. But since it didn't, I mean, clearly Apple's like, we'll just let Google and everybody else run it.
Yeah, my thought is that Apple will do with AI what it did with search. We're fine to allow Google to pay us billions of dollars a year to use their stuff. And we don't have it internally. We're going to make sure that it's secure and safe on our hardware, but we are more than happy to allow Google to give us money for Google to be the default for search.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they are kind of thinking that same thing when it comes to AI, because Apple we think of all the software things that they do, and just how beautiful all that software works with their hardware. But Apple makes their money off of selling things physically. They are Apple
Selling
services are,
devices and selling
yeah,
subscriptions.
I mean, subscriptions and services are coming up, but if they had to choose one right now, they say I'd rather sell hardware because that's where they make their trillions of dollars.
Right, right.
So I do believe that if they are saying, well, we're going to continue to be a hardware company, we're going to continue to be a company that is very, very concerned about our customers' privacy. So anything that we do, we're going to do it with that privacy concern to be like our North Star. I think that they may just be saying, wait, we aren't competing. We're a hardware company at heart. We're not an AI company. And it's just a space that we're not going to be in. That being said, I do wonder, because of just how big AI is and all these things that companies like Microsoft and Google and Perplexity and definitely OpenAI, the things that they're doing, if that becomes so big, if Apple is somehow in the future, if they're hampered by
As
the
long
fact
as
that they
their
haven't
phones
done
are
it.
as long as their devices are compatible,
Mm,
Apple will not care.
yeah.
Now, when AI becomes incompatible with Apple devices, then we have this conversation. But as long as Apple makes their devices compatible, which it sounds like they're doing it, they're making it compatible for Gemini. When they first launched it, it was compatible with OpenAI.
Mhm.
Microsoft and Apple have always been frenemies. So Microsoft Copilot running on iPhones or whatever, I'm pretty sure Apple will figure it out, right? So I think Apple has, to your point, conceded. They are behind on how people use AI with people, how people use AI now, that I don't think Apple will ever catch up to that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't really, and this is my heart of hearts, I don't believe Apple was chasing how people use AI now. I think the fact that AI is just AI and Apple failed at their version of AI, we assumed they was competing with the other ones when they tried their own thing and it didn't really work out as way they wanted to. So now they're like, all right, well, we do want to get some of that market share. So we'll just make our other devices compatible
Okay, that
and give up and
it,
wash our
it
hands.
it seems like it could be a thing, because if you think of Apple as a hardware company primarily, I know that, like I said, we just said that the services are coming up, software is coming up, but if you think of them as a hardware company, hardware has to run on something. OpenAI, although Johnny Ive is now is part of OpenAI, and they are working on physical devices that they can build over there. None of them sound like an iPhone. they sound I don't even know what they sound like. It seems like they're creating a new class of devices. Maybe Apple will play in that space at some point from a hardware standpoint. Maybe they won't, but it doesn't sound like they're competing on the supercomputers with a front side full of glass, and that you carry around in your pocket. I don't think that OpenAI is competing there, at least not yet. So we will see. I think you are right, because I don't think that they can catch up. Where you and I may differ is that I think that at one point they decided that, we need to be here, and I think that they were so far behind, they've made the decision that, you know what, let's go with Gemini next year. Let's see how that works. And if that works, then we'll just continue to pay Google or pay Perplexity or pay OpenAI. It doesn't really matter to them, as long as it's a good system that works out and it's advantageous to Apple and its user base. I think that they might say, yeah, we're going to give up on that dream and
Yeah, I
the
think they
dream of.
competed. They competed with AI, but I think the difference is they're competing with how you're supposed to use AI.
Mhm,
Again, like I mentioned, Apple wanted us iPhone users to be like, look at all this information we know about you. Let me cram it into this phone, so every thought that you had as it relates to the data that we have will relate the two, and then boom, you'll have this thing, right?
mhm,
What people are used to with AI is, I want information in general, and who can give it to me in the best format, right? I think that's where OpenAI and Gemini and Copilot and Perplexity and all those other things was competing, is how do we present the world information to you in a way that's digestible on your phone Apple was kind of like, we just want to use our data that we already know about you on your phone. And I think that's where, people are saying Apple's so far behind because they ain't done the thing that we're used to. And Apple's like, well, we kind of messed up on the stuff that we was trying to do. We wasn't even thinking about all the other stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. So, like I said, I think that we're probably simpatico on that. I think that, like I said, they're not playing the same game as everybody else is playing, and they're gonna say, hey,
Yeah.
we still a hardware company. We're gonna let you run your software on our hardware as long as it's secure. So, folks, we're out of stories to talk about for this episode of the Tech John. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. We're right here at the top of the hour. So we didn't get any new patrons. We said that at the top of the show this week. But if you are interested in supporting the Tech John, one of the best ways to do it is via our Patreon. So head over to techjohn.com/Patreon, and you will find multiple tiers over there. Any one of those tiers does so much to help us bring this tech to you the way that we do. So with that being said, Brother Tech, tell folks how they can get at you.
Yeah, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we're also at the Tech John on all the things. So come holler at us however you holler. Until we meet again in a week's time.
Peace.
Peace.